Many types of alcohol have rebranded, refined, or looked for a new cohort of consumers. Think tequila, whiskey, or cognac, but not rum. Now the brand 10 To One is looking to change that. It is launching here in the UK, having won a hall of accolades in the beverages world, as Britain marks Black History Month this October. Joining me now in studio is Bloomberg reporter Tiwa Adebayo, who spotted this story, and Marc-Kwesi Farrell, who is founder and CEO of 10 To One Rum. Marc-Kwesi, welcome to Bloomberg Radio. Thank you for your time. Just firstly, tell us a little bit about the product, how you came up with it, and how you're selling it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me on the program. I'm somebody who's very proudly from the Caribbean, born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago. I've spent most of my adult life living between the US and the UK. And that's been a big part of the inspiration for 10 To One. I looked at the category first as a consumer, with a little bit of a point of curiosity and a point of frustration, really believing that rum had been relegated to a fairly underappreciated place in the hearts and minds of many consumers, and actually didn't bear that much resemblance on the international circuit to what I know and love and appreciate coming from the Caribbean. And so really, after a long career in different elements of the consumer products world, decided to venture out on my own and really bring the brand 10 To One to life with this idea to reimagine the rum category, to reinvigorate it, and bring a little bit more of that Caribbean authenticity and Caribbean magic to market.
So you've successfully launched this reimagination of rum in the US. Now you're expanding to the UK. What sort of differences have you noticed in the process, and why now in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, the UK has been on my radar for quite some time. For a number of reasons. I mean, first and foremost, the UK, when you think about some of the top markets globally, where you want to capture the hearts and minds of consumers, the UK ranks right at the top of that list. So many incredible accounts, not just in London or the Greater London area, but throughout the broader United Kingdom. And so really, I think sort of bringing some of that story, having now seen 5 years of success in the US, bringing that to the UK has been, I think, again, forefront for us as a business for quite some time. It is also worthwhile noting that there is a very strong Caribbean diasporic population that is, of course, there in London and in the UK. And certainly being able to share some of this story with them is, I think brings on a different level of meaning and inspiration for us as a brand. And last but not least, some of my own personal connections. I studied at Cambridge many years ago. My twin sister lives in the UK with her family as well. And so obviously it's nice to bring a little bit of the 10 To One magic for them to enjoy as well.
I wonder what you're hoping for in terms of sales, and also whether you're trying to raise funds in the UK. A new survey by Opinion Matters that took place last year shows that 3/4 of UK black business owners who were asked have found it challenging to raise funds to kickstart businesses, compared to 46% of their non-black counterparts. Are there challenges to raising money were you to go down that route in the UK?
I think, listen, approaching the UK market with a ton of optimism and excitement, to be honest. I think there's very fertile ground there for us, certainly in the rum category, as I said, to bring a little bit more of that magic that maybe the category has been lacking over time. I think the point that you're raising around black businesses or black founded businesses is a very valid one. I think one of the big challenges that those types of businesses have often faced is a little bit of this perception that the stories that they're telling are perhaps for a fairly narrow audience or a fairly narrow set of product offerings. And I think that's not true. In the case of 10 To One, for example, I would often tell people that so much of the story of 10 To One does not require you to be from the Caribbean with a Trinidadian or Jamaican passport. If you're right there in London or in Manchester, inspired by the Caribbean music, the art, the fashion, the food, you're going to find so many points of resonance with what we're creating. And so I think for us, we've always tried to, expand that aperture and make sure that the story, the brand, the product feel like it's accessible to more folks. And the hope is that then when you think about fundraising and attracting investors and things of that nature, you are able to maybe sort of climb that hill where others have struggled in the past.
I mean, you mentioned that you don't necessarily need to be from a Caribbean background to appreciate rum, but you have noted that the marketing of the drink definitely relies on some old tropes around pirates and plantation, which you're trying to change. Can you speak to the importance of having black founders and executives when it comes to challenging perceptions like these?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a mentor of mine many years ago who very wisely and very simply said, if you don't tell your own story yourself, someone else is going to tell it for you. And I think if you look at rum as a category historically, that's exactly what has happened. I think this reliance on a fairly narrow, caricatured sort of view of the space. A lot of pirates, a lot of sea monsters, a lot of plantations and old fables. And anybody who has been anywhere around the Caribbean, or if you have a friend who's from the Caribbean, you know it's an incredibly rich cultural tapestry. The joie de vivre, the spontaneity, the high energy, the love of life. There's so many other incredible stories to be told. And so at 10 to 1, we made a very simple decision, which is to tell those stories instead. And from the 5 years that we've had in market in the US, I think there's been a lot of resonance around that. It seems to be a story and a point of view that has been working quite well. And so now I'm excited to bring that to the UK market.
Yeah, absolutely. And that surely chimes in also with Black History Month, of course, which is marked in October in the UK. The theme this year being reclaiming narratives. I wonder what is your view, though, as you say, when you have a foot in both the US and the UK, on the rollback in the US of DEI programs in universities and also in some businesses in the US. Is that a concern? Is that becoming an issue actively for you when you seek funding?
It hasn't presented as an issue for us just yet when it comes to whether it's fundraising or seeking out new partners or things of that nature. Look, I think the reality is that you're going to see a little bit of a pendulum swing over time with these things, right? I mean, over the last 4 or 5 years, probably from the rise of the COVID global pandemic till now, I think you saw a pretty big spike in the number of DE&I initiatives in the US and further afield, and now obviously you're seeing a little bit of a pushback or pullback rather for some of those initiatives. The good news is I think you're always going to find pockets of folks who understand the value of, and to me those things are less about sort of the DE&I per se, but really about an acknowledgement that there are different cultural viewpoints, different perspectives that all have a seat at the table and all have something to offer. We found that there are enough of those pockets in the US. My hope is that we'll find that there are also a number of those pockets in the UK. And with that sort of support, that sort of wind in your sails gives you every chance to be successful.
Staying with that theme of DEI in the States, before you founded 10 to 1, you also had a very illustrious career at Starbucks, the youngest VP at the time, I believe. And it's a company which has had its fair share of issues when it comes to race relations. Bloomberg reported that it has suffered big losses in negative press reports related to a racist incident at a store in Philadelphia. As a former employee of Starbucks, can you point to opportunities for the brand to improve when it comes to race relations?
Yeah, listen, I think, there are opportunities for everyone across the board. And I think a lot of these things just start with being a more active and more willing listener. I'm happy to sit across the table from someone else and understand their point of view and figure out how and where you can lean into support. Listen, I'll say that as a former executive at Starbucks, I had nothing but an incredible experience there. I was very lucky and privileged to have someone like Howard Schultz, who's the founder and CEO of Starbucks, a personal mentor of mine, who gave me an incredible opportunity there at the company for a number of years, an incredible place to grow and learn. And actually, I would almost describe it as a bit of a finishing school for me, as a bit of a precursor to my time at 10 to 1. I do know that the folks that were there and shared the executive suite at the time had a great deal of passion and compassion for issues around sort of building a place, a sense of belonging, a super welcoming nature. I don't think every company gets it right all the time everywhere. And so I think it's a function of whenever those moments happen, doing what you can to, again, actively listen, engage communities wherever possible, and, I think do what you can to set that right. But overall, I would say my experience there was an overwhelmingly positive one.
Okay, that's an interesting point. I just want to end, though, on something lighter. Tell me how you drink your rum.
It's a good place to end. So, with 10 to 1, one of the hallmarks of our rum is that its versatility. We're creating these exceptional pan-Caribbean blends, bringing rums together from Trinidad, Barbados, Jamaica, the Dominican Republic, even Guyana, the best of the Caribbean in a single bottle. And with that versatility, we encourage folks to experience the rum on its own, sip it neat, rocks, a splash of soda water or coconut water, which is how we would enjoy it in Trinidad, in the Caribbean. So really clean, easy mixers that maintain the integrity of the rum. If you're looking for a delightful cocktail, a rum old fashioned with our dark is extraordinary, and a classic daiquiri with our white. I think will also think sort of capture hearts and change some minds along the way.
Okay, Marc-Kwesi Farrell, thank you so much for joining us and for your recommendations. Marc-Kwesi Farrell is the founder and CEO of 10 to 1 Rum, and to Bloomberg reporter Tiwa Adebayo. Thank you so much for joining me on this story, for bringing it to our attention, as the UK, of course, marks Black History Month also this month. Thank you.